Hello everybody, this is Stefano from DK Crafts, once again here to show you a few weaving patterns. This time around I'm going to work with multiple base wires. So we're moving on from the two base wires that I showed you over the last few videos, and we are moving on to directly using multiple, because pretty much all the patterns that I'm going to show you during this video can be applied to 3 wires, 4 wires, 5 wires, and so on. So just for the sake of showing you the pattern better, I'll probably end up doing all of them over the 5 wire base. So I cut off some pieces of 18 gauge wire, 1mm wire. Again, we are going to use 18 gauge wire, 1mm for the base wire, and we are going to use 26 gauge wire, 0.4mm for the weaving. So we'll start off straight away, and as always I'll unspool some of the weaving wire from the spool and I'll work directly off the spool, and we'll start straight away with the usual. So we'll wrap the base wire with the weaving wire 3, 4, 5 times just to anchor it down. Now, because I want to show you a good few patterns, I'll start from the very edge here. So the first one, all right, the most basic one that you're probably going to use a lot of time when you're trying to hold things together in a fairly tight manner. So it's the same one I showed you on the first video, but I want to show you a slight difference and variation. This is gonna be called the grain wire, because it kind of like looks like a grain sprig once it's finished. So we'll put the second wire here, and then from the bottom we'll move up around the 2 wires, and then in between the first and the second we add a third wire now, and we do the exact same thing again, up by 2, back down by 1, and in between we do the exact same thing for the fourth one, up by 2 and in between, and then one last time we add a fifth one. At this point your wires are kind of trying to move around, because there's only one little passage of wires keeping them. So after you've reached this point here, you are going to go, so in the first video I showed you how to tie it together in a very tight-knit fashion. So at that point, at this point, you would be going back down and repeating everything from the beginning. Now for this one, the grain wire, the grain weave, we are going to want to create the same pattern, the same kind of like escalating pattern from bottom to top, but we want to do it from the top to the bottom now in a specular manner. So we are going to have to go down from the bottom now. We go down by 2 wires and come back up and wrap around the 2. This way we create a specular weave on the top 2 wires to the last passage there. Now from the back we are going to move down by 3 wires now and come back up, and then we'll move up and come back down on between the 4th and the 5th wire. At this point we'll repeat the exact same, and we'll go down by 3. So come in between the 1st and the 2nd, go back up by 2, and then again down by 3 between around the 1st and the 2nd, and back down by 2 around the 2nd and the 3rd, and then we'll go down around the 1st one only and wrap. See that the moment I close, you see, as the wire stands at the moment, it's specular. It goes up one way, it comes down the other way, and if you push it together, it's kind of gonna look like a grain sprig. So we are going to now wrap around maybe 5 times around the bottom to create a distancing, 3, 4 and 5, and we're going to start our pattern all over again. So we'll do 1 around the first one, one around the first 2, and then coming back in between the 2, around the second and the third, and coming back up in between, around the third and the fourth, and coming back up in between, around the fourth and the fifth, and again coming back in between. 1 wrap around the top one, sorry for my nose, and we are going to move back by 2, wrap around both, down by 3, up by 2, and then in between, down by 3, and then up by 2, and in between, again down by 3, up by 2, and then just 1 wrap around the bottom one. As you can see, by distancing it, you can see the pattern very clearly, and this can be used as a decorative wire, a pattern, but it's also quite a sturdy one once they are all together. Obviously the bottom wire is going to be tighter than the top wire, because the top wire is only tied here, but as you go with more repetitions it will become more tight as you go. Now, sorry, but my weaving wire just got slightly kinked. So now we'll use the same pattern of going up by 2 and then back down as we just used to create this pattern, to move on to the next one. So I'll just do a few repetitions just to create a distance in between it on the bottom wire. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now this pattern is what I like to call the zipper weave, and it's a fairly fun thing to do. It can be done in different ways. This is the basic one, so we'll do 1 repetition, 2 repetitions around the first one. Now we are moving up to the second wire and wrapping around, so going down in between the second and the third, but we are not moving up straight away. We are going to do 2 repetitions of this and coming back in between the second and the third, and doing between the first and the second, sorry, and then we'll do exactly the same thing here. We repeat twice. We wrap around 2 wires 2 times, and then to close this passage we are going to pass in between the second and the third, again repeating on this and coming back in between the 2 wires, and then moving up to the last one, last 2. We do 2 repetitions, come back in between and wrap around just the top wire twice. At this point what can be done is you can either come down like the grain wire the opposite way, and you'll end up with something that I normally call the zigzag pattern. So we wrap around the top 2, coming back down, we are going to come up under the 3rd wire and go up and come back in around the 4th, in between the 4th and the 5th. We'll do it again, and then 3 again down and 2 up, and we do this twice. The wrap around the 2 wire, we'll do it twice. Sometimes the wire doesn't want to go in the direction you want it to go, but don't worry. And then we'll do the exact same down here, 3 down and around the 2, and then 2 around just the bottom one. We'll do this once more so you can see. We'll push it a little bit, but we don't want to push it too hard because we kind of want the distancing to stay there, because this is going to be zigzag pattern. So we'll start again, up by 2, in between the 2, up by 2, in between again, up by 2, in between again, and up by 2, in between, and wrap twice around just the top one, and then we'll come down by going down around the top 2 wires. Once we are around the top 2 wires, we move down by 3 and wrap around the 3rd and 4th wire, and then do the exact same thing with the other 2, so around the 3rd and the 4th, sorry, the 2nd and the 3rd, and once again around the 2nd and the 3rd, and then down the 1st and the 2nd, and around the 1st one. And this way, if you keep going this way, you will create a consistent pattern that will zigzag around. Very useful to create frames or even bracelets, or I wouldn't use it for ring shanks because of the feel around the finger, but on bracelets it will look very, very good. Now, one last thing that can be done with this pattern, with this method of wrapping, which is the going up 2, coming back around 1, is what I was calling earlier on the zipper weave. So if at this point we create some spacing, just again to make it clearer, 3, 4 and 5, and we'll start our weave from here. So we'll wrap twice around the bottom one, we'll wrap twice around the first 2 and come back in between the first 2, and do the exact same thing around the 2nd and the 3rd, and come back in between 3rd and 4th twice, and come back in between 4th and 5th twice, and then around the top one only twice. At this point, if you were to come down, you would be doing the exact same pattern here, but what we want to do now is, sorry, the wire again is getting kinked. Okay, that's perfect. Now, from this point, as I was saying, we are going to do a full coming back down with good tension on the first wire, and we'll start and repeat this 1 and 2, and then we'll do another 2 on the first 2 wires and come back in between, and we'll repeat what we just did. So we go up by 2 twice, and back up by 1, up by 2, back in between by 1, up by 2, back in between by 1 twice. At this point, if you do it this way, you see that you create this kind of parallel pattern, diagonal parallel pattern. It can be left like that, or you can squeeze it together, kind of push it as hard as you can, and the result will kind of look like a zipper. If you repeat it one more time, just so you can see it slightly better, it's 2, the first 2 wires, 2nd and 3rd, 3rd and 4th, 4th and 5th. And we want to have the base wires parallel, and just the 5th. At this point, if I'm going to push it, you will see how it kind of creates this lovely pattern of woven wire and empty spaces in between. Kind of looks like a zipper a little bit, and it's very, very good for decorations, but also for consistency, because it's very, very tight, and it won't allow much movement of your base wires. So these are some examples of weaving patterns that all will give you structure. but also are quite decorative, so they can be used in different occasions. So yeah, after this video I'm going to start showing you how to actually build some pieces, fairly easy ones to begin. With the weaving, I think most of the basics we have down. You can practice these patterns with 2, 3, 4, 5, well, not 2, but 3, 4, 5, 6 wires, 6 base wires, whichever you prefer, just to see the looks of them and what you kind of like to work with. But for the moment, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon again.